Okay, joining me now is CA Conservative. I don't need to introduce you.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, there's a lot going on. Afghanistan, let's start there.
The greatest disgrace this country has ever seen by a
And
president who advocated a return to normalcy, instead went almost infinitely further than the previous guy did in terms of trashing our reputation, destroying our foreign policy, and undermining our interests around the world.
yep, there's been almost no good news. Uh, we're just today. Biden said he's leaving on the 31st.
Which, of course, means he's actually leaving on the 27th.
Please explain.
Well, because they're going to suspend civilian evacuations to get the troops out. So that they're completely gone by the 31st. It's an utter travesty
Yeah,
that will leave not just thousands of American citizens behind, but tens of thousands of our Afghan allies and friends behind.
and U.S. green card
Um,
holders.
yeah. Um, the process has been an utter disgrace. As I said, almost certainly among the lowest moments we've faced as a country.
Yeah,
Well, I say we in the broadest sense. Um,
yeah.
and
Go ahead.
it didn't have to happen. Everybody's been warning the administration for months about this. Um, everybody, especially those on the sort of international relations left, said, "Oh no, it'll be fine. They've got a plan. You know, Biden, he'll be fine." But instead, Biden barely looks like he can be president. Um, the man is utterly insane. Totally unprepared. Every press conference he gives disgraces us more and more. Every press conference his people give disgrace us more and more. They canceled them luckily today because apparently getting humiliated by even the more left-wing press just isn't that fun.
Yeah, let's talk about the press because CNN, mainstream media, they've been doing a superb job covering what's going on in Afghanistan. Like they're running laps around right wing media, which seems to be their main focus is the fact that General Milley was promoting critical race theory, not the fact that the administration was bungling the withdrawal from Afghanistan and let the Taliban take over. So
Well, I think part of that is because only Fox is big enough to have a big foreign affairs bureau. And I believe their State Department, or whoever does the State Department interviews has been doing fine. But it's on the ground reporting from both CNN and NBC that has been very valuable throughout this. To the point where even they cannot deny the travesty that is taking place. And as we saw with NBC a few days ago, despite their best attempts, because they know this, that they can't have their senior people on the ground say what a disaster it is, and then not or then allow the administration hacks to say, oh, it's good, or hacks and Jennifer Rubin.
oh, and Ilhan
Um,
Omar, the squad as well. They're also
oh yeah.
criticizing the media.
Even though a lot of their people in Congress have been more critical than I thought even possible.
Yeah, like Jason Crow, like Democrats like him, they've been hammering the administration on this. In fact, they've been giving information that contradicts what the administration is saying.
Almost in live time.
Yeah, but I have to say that Biden's most ardent supporters, I have been getting press is fake news and enemy of the people vibes from them lately.
It is quite funny. The whole and it's that they don't see the irony. They don't see what is happening. They just ignore the reports from our allies media about how damaging this has been from us and how angry the British, the French, the Ukrainians, the Indians, how mad they all are at us for this disaster. And in barely restrained terms.
Yeah.
This is in what, the past 3 weeks, we've done more damage to our reputation than Trump ever did in 4, or even could have done in 8,
Yeah.
by far.
Oh, no, definitely.
I mean, with
But
openly lying to them, according to the Brits. I believe that was in the out of the Daily Mail or the Telegraph a few days ago. About how we just
tabloids.
lied about the timeline, and that's why everybody was seem unprepared. I mean, there was a story in the Daily Mail where British Special Forces teams were caught without support behind enemy lines because they hadn't been told that a withdrawal was going on. And it had to be rescued, as if they were fighting in Colombia or something.
Yeah. And what's happening in Kabul is making, people are comparing it to Saigon, and I disagree because what's happening is making Saigon look like a noble British retreat.
Well, I mean, Saigon was only extremely chaotic at the end, and only because of the civilians that wanted to flee. We're not even able to get all of our own people out. I mean, there was a story, I forget where it was from. Maybe it was in the Post, about our embassy, about we just had to destroy all the equipment we had defending it because we couldn't get it out. Like, what plan?
If Biden had a plan, it was apparently that the Taliban would control more territory than they did at the eve of 9/11 and have the best military equipment that money can buy, compliments of U.S. taxpayers.
Yeah, apparently, I mean, it's difficult. It's so bad that it has to be in even people that are openly Buchanan style traitors wouldn't be this hardcore towards them.
Yeah. Do you mean Pat Buchanan or James Buchanan?
James.
Okay, because
Um
I can make the argument that Pat Buchanan's not a great guy either.
no, the former president.
Yeah.
But well, maybe not former these days. I guess the spirit is back. Um but I mean, it's a position that, especially given, I mean, it's destroyed the credibility of those, the Wilsons, um, the Crystals, all of those, maybe technically fellow travelers with me who all wholeheartedly endorsed this administration being just utterly humiliated.
But
That is the only thing keeping me sane.
but that includes me because I also supported the guy. But can't I mean I pointed out this to you when we were talking in DMs. Like I know it sounds crazy because you saw people who were not willing to criticize Trump, but you can be critical of the guy you voted for.
But I don't think that's true, because this is so far out of bounds that it speaks to everything. To his basic ability to be president and his team's
Yeah.
basic ability to run the country.
And Biden
It's
campaigned on.
not, this isn't a scandal over, $1 million being misused for infrastructure. I mean, this is tens of thousands will be killed as a result of this. Explicitly and directly as a result of this administration's actions. I don't think you can simultaneously oppose this and yet support the administration as a whole
I
without
don't
some
support
serious
the.
cognitive
Yeah,
dissonance.
I mean, I don't support the administration anymore. I think they lost me this past week.
Well, I mean, even with my low standards, it's every day brings a new humiliation. I mean, you have a point where the only way people are getting rescued is to have them call members of Congress and then have them call the State Department, because they simply don't know what's going on.
Can the Bill Crystals be forgiven for supporting someone who promised to do the exact opposite of what he just did?
Well, no, because in this case, this is who Biden is. He hated the South Vietnamese and ardently opposed them coming here. He's been wrong on every foreign policy issue ever.
Except for Israel. He's actually been decently pro-Israel.
Only barely. And even there, he's been wrong a ton with their responses to the intifadas, with all the stuff in the past. I mean, the man has almost a perfect record of being wrong.
I will, however, just say this. During the past conflict in Gaza, the one that was just 3 months ago, apparently there was pressure on Biden to give the anti-Israel left in the party like some sort of red meat. He didn't do that at all.
Well, I mean, largely because the Israelis didn't give him a reason to. His instincts may be not exactly pro-Palestine, but that's almost certainly because his instincts lie opposed to both Israel and Hamas. Which is why you still see his team, especially him and his team, trying to do their best to shift us towards another Iran deal. Withdrawing us from Yemen. I think we'll be lucky if we don't end the year off with withdrawing from Iraq.
It sounds like we're already going to be ending combat operations there at the end of the year.
Well, I mean, we don't have any combat operations there, so it's marginally easier to stay, just because to leave would mean just completely withdrawing. We are at our minimum presence in the country already. I mean, aside from a drone strike here or there, we really don't do anything in Iraq anymore. But the world is it is probably the most dangerous place since the 90s.
When the Soviet Union was unraveling.
Well, no, well, that, and when Islamist terrorism was spreading unabated across the world.
Well, the funny thing though is that for the most part, radical Islamic terrorism is largely contained within the Middle East. You don't hear much from it these days. It's Africa where you hear a lot of the terrorism stories these days.
Well, during the Trump administration, things had largely. No, I don't want an 85% sale of the Telegraph. I'm getting emails. But things had largely been in withdrawal. The era of the drone has severely suppressed Al-Qaeda and its friends. Our minor deployments in Somalia, in Kenya, in with the French in Chad, in Niger, partially in Libya, in the Philippines, in Malaysia. These are places that have seen us and our friends severely reduce terrorism and the threat of it, simply because it can't exist in the open anymore. Until now, in which it has an entire country to exist in the open.
I mean, well, it's not like terrorism when it was not state supported before. Like wink wink nudge nudge, Pakistan.
Well, I mean, Pakistan's role in this is undeniable. And we should have shifted against them a long time ago. It was always a failure of the Bush era and Obama era generals of not determining how to cut Pakistan off from Afghanistan.
Should we have invaded Pakistan after 9/11?
Well, no, they didn't have anything to do with it. The ISI's role with the Taliban really only started after 9/11.
Okay.
Bin Laden fled there simply because he had nowhere else to go.
Right. Yeah, I mean, like you sort of understood like what my sort of hat trick of benefits that would have resulted from an invasion of taking out the Pakistani government and doing nation building there.
Well, I mean, there largely is nothing to build there. They're obviously extremely well armed, and they were a U.S. ally before the 90s. given India's left-wing tilt.
What people will say is, so was the Taliban.
Well, no, it wasn't, not in the slightest. The Mujahideen and the Taliban are two completely separate groups.
Okay.
With very little overlap in personnel. Most of the Mujahideen, that's in that photo of Reagan and that we supported openly went to the Northern Alliance. Of which we see the remnants of that fighting
in the Panjshir Valley.
Yeah. Even though we hear conflicting reports on whether that's going well or not.
I mean, why isn't the United States supporting the Panjshir rebels?
Well, because they have thousands of us held hostage in Kabul. Because of the position the administration has put us in. It's funny to hear sort of this passiveness from defenders of the administration. Oh, we don't have any leverage. Yeah, but why are we in that position? That's like saying, why are we now hanging off this cliff? Like, they bear all of the responsibility for this position. It doesn't matter that right now we're not in a position to do things. The fault of that is us.
Well,
here's the administration.
Here's what they'll say is that they'll also put blame on the previous administration for signing that deal or negotiating with the Taliban. They negotiated with the Taliban, signed that deal without the input of the Afghan government, and basically agreed to the release of all of these people that the U.S. had locked up.
But what's the difference between that deal and all the other deals and policies this administration has torn up from the last?
I mean, so that I don't.
But I mean, the administration can't fundamentally claim it was trapped into this deal when it has seen fit to abrogate tons of other deals in asylum policy, in immigration policy, in climate policy. What's the difference?
Just so I want to be clear, I think this is squarely on Biden. I just don't think Trump is blameless.
Well, of course not. And as people, especially Nikki Haley, shouldn't be going around lying about their role in this, but it's pure deflection from the administration trying to look back when they wouldn't accept that logic anywhere else, and in fact didn't accept it during Trump's first year.
But let's talk about like actually defending Trump, because Ben Dominic tweeted last week that Trump would have gotten all of the SIVs and American citizens out of there, which I think is BS. Because
I think while it's obviously impossible to know if this would have gone better under a Trump administration, I do think that this sort of gaslighting, sort of it completely in a different reality approach taken by this administration wouldn't work. Simply because they're not that bad. There's probably the ratio of responsible adults in the Trump administration is definitely higher than in this administration, where they seem to just not have a clue.
There's nothing.
I mean, it's frightening to listen to Paskey speak, to whoever the Pentagon spokesman is. I mean, it's frightening.
The CIA apparently is speaking to the Taliban
openly. I mean, the man that the CIA director met with should have been executed years ago.
Yeah. This is just a moment. I'm just going to plug the show that Christy Pirano and I are doing called Cobbled Together. It's a weekly show we're doing on Sunday nights, following the rapidly developing situation in Afghanistan. Bit of an update coming up. We're still undecided though about that particular update, but I will keep you guys posted. Anyway, I just want to do that plug.
I mean, like, what is this? Paskey just said she wouldn't describe the withdrawal as anything but a success. What is she on? I mean,
I think she's pointing to the fact that apparently, like, in the past few days, things have sped up.
But they haven't. I mean, the people on the ground have said that nobody has been able to get to the airport in days. That's people on the ground, and that's why the press has had such a hard time covering for this administration, is they can't simultaneously say that.
But I don't think I don't think they're trying to cover for the administration right now.
No, but you can see elements of them still trying to, especially on NBC with such a high ratio of idiots.
Right. I mean,
Um,
what I found was that in George Stephanopoulos's interview with Biden, he's like basically asking, "Did you screw up?" Like I would never have thought he would have asked a Democrat that question.
well, and you saw him get extremely mad at the reporter for PBS for asking, the correct question other than the one that they pre-approved. Like imagine, maybe it was no, it was NPR, excuse me. Imagine getting attacked by NPR and PBS as a Dem. How do you do that?
You chaotically pull withdraw
We
troops from
lie. I mean,
Afghanistan.
they're openly lying, and they're not just lying, but they're continuing to sort of arrogantly just speak mistruths.
Cam, do you want to join Couple Together with me and Christy?
Mm, don't know if I have the time, nor am I particularly qualified for such a thing.
Okay. I mean, Christy is like an expert who has multiple contacts and is actively trying to get an Afghan interpreter stateside. I'm just a guy with a podcast.
And I'm just a guy. I know a bunch of people who have been actively working significantly harder than the administration, mind you, to get people like that here.
Right. But
And it's been quite heartening to watch the responses, both of them, of Congress people on both sides, and of local communities, when the planes finally get here.
right. I will say this
Um,
though. Biden is not the worst president on the record of SIV applicants. That honor would be shared jointly by Trump and Obama.
well, I mean, the problem is that the program, Obama and Trump may not have used the program as well as it did, but they didn't need it to work very well. Biden has been told for months that the program would not work. It would not be working as well as it needed to do when the withdrawal happened. And yet they arrogantly said that it would work fine, that the State Department has got it, we're good guys, and that we shouldn't worry. And they've been lying for months. I mean, that's why a ton of the more professional accounts and from people from organizations, what is it called? It's like Bring Them Home or something like that. I forget the exact name. Have been so furious because this shouldn't be news to anybody that, this was going to be a calamity. And yet right now, apparently the last flight that just took off was nearly empty because nobody can go in except even barely US citizens.
A
So I
fuster
mean,
cluck. That's what it is, a
even
fuster cluck.
even passively not knowing what you're doing is better than actively not knowing what you're doing and refusing to change, which is what this administration is doing.
Okay, I'm gonna
I mean,
get.
look at this. This is from the press secretary. If any of you are hearing from U.S. citizens who cannot reach us, give me their contact information. We'll get into, like, what are these people doing? Why is the media needed to communicate, for evacuations? What? Hello? Don't we have like an entire government for that?
Is the U.S.'s hold on the airport stable, or is there a fear that they could be overrun in the next few days? Or they
Well,
just.
I mean, the administration and its defenders have been saying, "Oh, we don't have any leverage. They could take the." If we're in a position where several thousand troops can't defend an airport that's been designed to be held by force, then we're in an extremely bad position. And that's resignation. I mean, all of this is resignation worthy, but I mean, that would be an utter disgrace.
Right, and do we really want Kamala Harris president right now?
I mean, they all need to leave. I mean, the fact that I think that kind of says it all, that they don't even think that anybody needs to go. They're not even going to do the token firing of the guy who processes visas.
Right.
Like, how do you do that?
Like, I have a feeling,
It's
by
the
the way,
shamelessness
I have a
that
feeling
gets me.
I have a feeling that things are going to get worse, and I think that Michelle Flournoy is polishing her resume right now.
Well, I mean, the thing that's going to get worse is when, the footage, because a lot of this, we've been getting minor pictures of people being killed and tortured and beaten. But a lot of it is not, the real stuff hasn't begun in earnest. When that starts to get out, then, it will continue to get worse. This administration's position that, oh, the American people don't care. I mean, there was a good article in in commentary by Noah Rothman about how they think we're done. That the American people are not willing to defend ourselves and our allies. It's cynicism of an unprecedented degree.
Yeah, and what of the refugee crisis? I'm on the Economist website right now. What of the refugee crisis that's basically now happening as the Taliban, just does their thing essentially and makes life unlivable for, over half the country. Let's be clear, like no woman in her right mind, would should be considered safe in that country.
Oh God, no! I heard, or I saw a story of a woman who was torched to death because her slave master didn't like her cooking. Like that, it's egregious to hear. It's gonna be, and this will last forever, of the left claiming to be a defender of women while abandoning tens of millions of them to slavery and death. It just that there's nothing. The whole, oh, we're the compassionate people, and it's done.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna
You can't claim that.
I'm gonna keep getting angry if we keep talking about this, Cam.
Well, I mean, I don't think that I. The only positive thing is that the bet that we don't care doesn't seem to be working out in the latest polls.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's already almost double digits down in New Hampshire, it's not going well.
There are cynics like I'm sure people who maybe like Drew Savicki who would basically say people will forget about this and it will be yesterday's news in a week or two from now.
There's a lot of people in Afghanistan to torture and kill. The Taliban aren't going to run out of people anytime soon, and apparently, given when they'll be withdrawing, they're not going to run out of American citizens to do so either.
It's bad.
It's, as I said, probably our lowest point as a country in a very long time.
And you probably want me to say this as somebody who's supported Biden, so I'll say this: Biden effed up.
Well, I mean, that's an understatement.
He effed up majorly.
But the problem is not so much those that admit that, but those that kind of just randomly, deflect around to try to escape that fact. The only funny thing to watch is how much the administration keeps kicking those people when they're down. With more bad news, more incompetence. I
mean,
they're not going to let, especially the Jen Rubins of the of the world
what happened?
Get away with this.
What are you laughing at?
Well, somebody replied to Jennifer Rubin, wow, the Taliban are modernizing. They hired a spokeswoman. Because she is one. Oh. She absolutely is. And all these people, a lot of these people, it has to make you wonder, did they ever really believe what they said? The answer is no, obviously.
I mean, Jen Rubin used to be a neocon.
Even Crystal found the time to be partially critical of the administration. But I mean, this isn't even. It's on a different level.
You follow me. I have not spared a tweet in dragging the administration over this past week.
Well, I think from a lot of people, especially, and this is some of the reasons why the more professional elements haven't been crucifying the administration, is they're too busy trying to help their friends and their allies to get out. And that is every one of those increases resentment that's gonna come out, and it's just I don't. I mean, when you've got a lot of Dems, I mean, um, Mulligan from not Mo, what's his name? Mo something from Massachusetts, or Crow, or there's a bunch of them who,
Seth Moulton, is that the name you're looking
yeah,
for?
yeah, yeah, who have been very critical of the administration, so far as anybody can be of their own party. And I don't think that's going to stop because, especially if they really short circuit the withdrawal as they're intending to do, this isn't forgivable. It's
The
not
econ
recoverable.
The Economist agrees with you. The front page of their magazine was Biden's debacle.
Oh yeah. Um, and I mean, it's going to be a case in which, especially as Dems just kind of go full throttle with their reconciliation plan, it's going to severely hurt that.
Yeah.
Especially as the Senate goes around. I mean, you've got a lot of people who can reasonably say, why are we dealing with this when this whole catastrophe is going on?
Okay, I'm just gonna keep getting angry if we keep going on this subject. So you want to turn to more cheerful news?
Cheerful news. Trying to think what qualifies as
Germany.
cheerful. Well, I heard in damn it, was it not
Oh, Zambia. That's what that was.
Zambia? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm thinking Tunisia. Now they had a coup, but yeah, elected a more reasonable candidate. I'll give him that.
Yeah, there was fears the election would be rigged, and it wasn't.
Well, it was rigged,
It
just
was
not
rigged, but
enough for
they
the
didn't
incumbent to
rig it
win.
enough.
It was disappointing that the government in Malaysia fell.
Oh, the government. Oh, that just happened. Yeah, and in Tunisia, is okay. Yeah, let's ask about Tunisia. Is the Arab Spring now finally dead?
Well, I mean, Tunisia is a case in which the existing democratic structure is not functioning. And so, absent a revolution, this is probably the easiest way to try and move to a marginally saner system.
That's not democratic.
Well, no, it can be democratic. It just won't be democratic now.
Right. So you think
Um,
there's still going to be an election in a few years?
yeah, the problem is the system at present doesn't work. The political parties are basically just terrorist organizations that get elected. Um, there's no real civil society that keeps everything together, and so you sort of have different entities trying to figure out what to do. I mean, the parliament itself is not in a position to do anything. I mean, you look at the list of parties, and the Muslim Brotherhood is prominently represented. Supporters of Turkey and Qatar. So we shouldn't pretend that the previous the existing system is functioning well. Um, Especially given I'm relatively sure that the parliament was over its no, it wasn't. Not only 2 years ago. And so it could be worse. We'll have to
So,
see.
I mean, I'm personally pessimistic. I think that the Arab Spring just died a couple months ago, and I think I don't think this guy's going to give up power.
Well, I mean, luckily for us, he's an old man, so
Well, I mean, I think that the guys in the '90s who wanted to turn Iraq into a democracy so that they trigger revolutions throughout the Middle East, it worked for a while, and then it just didn't work out.
Well, I mean, say what you want about Iraq, but it is likely the greatest Arab democracy still left. No,
Yeah,
Lebanon isn't a democracy in the slightest.
Lebanon, no.
Given the reign of the Taliban over all aspects
Hezbollah.
of civil society.
Oh, sorry.
Turkey,
Oh,
well,
you said
Turks aren't Arab.
Afghanistan, not Lebanon.
Oh yeah, I'm going. I mean, just going. I mean, I guess you could maybe put. I don't know. Algeria and Morocco. I think they suspended elections recently.
Morocco has a king.
Yeah. Well, that's not Jordan does. Well, Jordan's not in the mark. But I mean, Iraq. Say what you want, but they hold elections. Political reforms. The next election should be better than the last so far as the system used.
Is there an election at the end of this year in Iraq?
Mm, there probably is technically supposed to be, but I'm sure they'll delay it a bunch.
Yeah.
But I mean, so far as everywhere else, Iraq's on the top. It's a pretty low bar,
Right.
but
The biggest criticism that I've seen from some of the Iraq invasion of Iraq was the fact that when Saddam Hussein was in power, they were an enemy of Iran, and since removal from power, Iraq has moved into Iran's orbit.
well, I mean, it's a majority Shia country. To keep it out of Iran's orbit entirely is tantamount to saying that that majority doesn't have the right to rule.
I'm just wondering if we should just let Iran like take off southern Iraq and just let him have it.
Well, I mean, the problem, and Biden suggested roughly the same, is that, of course, there is no clear dividing line.
Right.
You'll have to massacre hundreds of thousands to cut the country up. Partition style,
Like,
in
people, I think
47.
there was a proposal like in the 2008 election, like by some of the Republicans who wanted a Shiite state, a Sunni state, and a Kurdish state with Baghdad as a shared capital.
But I mean, it's not realistic because that's why Lebanon cannot be cut up. That's why Northern Ireland cannot be cut up, because there are too many people living on the wrong side of the line.
Right.
The existing system, they're only failing is those extra legal entities that continue to use violence and intimidation to control the government. And fortunately, the PM is quite a reasonable man with sufficient fortitude and authority to to shift the country in a more stable direction.
Right.
The Kurds themselves have been doing a very bad job governing themselves for the past year or two. Open fighting between the parties, very divided over the sharing of oil revenues. They keep pissing off the Turks. I mean, it's dangerous. To the point where if everybody was allowed to go their own way, I think it would be even less stable than it is today.
Right. So keep Iraq together, even though I think that people living in southern Iraq would be amenable to Iranian rule.
Well, they may support Iran, but I doubt they want to be part of Iran.
Right.
There are still a lot of independent groups there that are not always happy to side with Iran and have openly fought them in the past. In fact, telling them that they'd have to be ruled by Iran would probably lead them to fight them even more.
Right. Let's Zambia. What happened there?
Well, I mean, the opposition won, a more centralist opposition, versus the more sort of old lefty kind of um
Yeah, yeah,
party that ruled before.
yeah. Between Sudan, Zimbabwe, and now Zambia, we've been removing some high profile dictators.
Well, I don't think that the previous guy was a dictator in any sense of the word. Um, given he just held an election.
Right.
Um,
But I mean, like, it's like soft authoritarianism, like in Hungary or India or Turkey, for that matter.
well, I mean, Turkey, I mean, he's down a lot in the latest polls against everybody. So if the next election takes place on even remotely fair grounds, he'll lose.
Wow.
Erdogan, I mean.
Yeah, Erdogan.
If he doesn't, then Turkey's break with the West will be complete.
Yeah.
It is kind of ironic. It's very similar to Taiwan in that the left of Turkey is more pro-West than the right.
That is funny.
Although Taiwan should be very worried.
Because of, well, please don't repeat the PRC's
well,
propaganda.
because of events in an area in the mountains of Asia, have severely undermined U.S. guarantees. I mean, the Ukrainians have openly been saying, we're lucky we can provide for our own defense.
Can the Ukrainians provide for their own defense?
For everything short of a full invasion, yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past Russia to go for a full invasion.
Their problem is I'm sure the other countries in Eastern Europe have told them that they will declare that they're guaranteeing Ukraine informally.
Do they have the numbers to do that?
The numbers to cause Russia trouble if they do, yeah.
Okay, so Russia is matched.
Well, I mean, because you figure what would probably happen. So Russia would quickly move into Ukraine, blitzkrieg style. They would take losses given the number of tow missiles and other things the Ukrainians possess. But they would likely be able to push. But then, say even Poland gets involved, Kaliningrad falls. Russia would never be able to defend that. And then there'd be a huge stalemate in Belarus, as each side. What a disgrace! People say, Belarus should be pointed out as the #1 example of why nonviolent resistance doesn't work. The government of Belarus has the support of like 15% of the people, and because that 85% don't rise it with force, the government's still in power. Like, why?
Right. And for that 15%, I assume that they had to pull Vladimir Putin 150 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, you could also speak to European weakness. One could even call this existing administration very European in its style. I mean, you heard the stories of both the Dutch, Swedes, and others just packing up and leaving. They didn't tell their local allies anything. They just didn't show up one day. And then they just, the comment from the Germans, they didn't have to work with us. They didn't have to help us. Like, why would anybody ever want to work with the West again, if that's going to be our opinion?
Why would anyone want to work with the United States again?
Yeah. I hope we don't need local allies for anything for the next 50 years.
Yeah, no, there's so many ways this has been like who's gonna translate, like good luck to American soldiers operating in any country except that doesn't speak English.
Yeah. And there's a good new Netflix show on the matter, actually, of our post-war occupation of Germany. And we're fortunate that most Germans speak some English.
Yeah.
I think that doesn't apply to Afghanistan, I don't think.
I think America would find it very difficult to occupy a country in the Middle East ever again.
Basically, yeah, I mean, our local allies, I mean, we obviously have some still in Iraq, but other than that, yeah, I think it's basically at an end there. Um,
I mean, that's what I think the Biden administration is moving towards. They want to get out of the Middle East. They want to move towards the Pacific theater.
well, they
That,
do, and yet they're going about it in a way that destroys us. Um, it would be like the French dismantling the Maginot Line to adjust against the threat of Japan. Like, thanks, guys.
yeah.
There's a lot of parallels between the late 1930s and now.
I think it's going to be another generation before America. Like, I think it's not going to be long before once American troops leave Iraq. I don't know when that's going to be, but I don't think they're going back to the Middle East for a while.
Iraq it's an interesting question because I don't know if they have the capital anymore to do it. I think they've so undermined themselves that they'd have because there's nothing, we don't have air bases all over Iraq where we're operating from. We've got the embassy, Baghdad airport, and like 2 bases in the north. Well, and then the big base. I forget if it's in Kuwait or if it's just on the border, but in the south. Like our presence in Iraq is pretty minor these days.
What's going on in Syria? Like, has the Assad government like completely crushed the rebels?
Oh, they still hold each job, the rebels. I mean,
Okay.
um, although they get bombed daily. I mean, the Turks, I think, have guaranteed the area.
For the government?
Well, no, for their local friends.
Right.
So the Syrians can't push it. It's kind of funny always watching the Russians and the Turks because the Russians obviously want to pull Turkey away from the West, and yet at almost every turn they end up on opposite sides.
Yeah.
The Turks support their local friends. The Russians support the Syrian government. In Libya, they ended up on opposite sides.
Yeah.
In Armenia and Azerbaijan, they were on opposite
Yeah,
sides.
I'm wondering if Russia, invades Ukraine and there's a retaliation. Do you think we could actually take the Caucasus from Russia, given that Russians are an ethnic minority there, and the population would probably be amenable to independence?
Well, I mean, the fun part would be because I mean, Turkey. It was a couple of months ago, but Turkey has already made several big investments in Ukraine, and sold them a significant number of the weapons that won them the war in Azerbaijan. Um, and so I think we would almost be going back to the 1800s in terms of how things would go between the various powers. Especially if Erdogan loses and reorients everybody back to the West, it would not be difficult to see Turkey seamlessly slotting itself back into the West, given they are still usually overlapping with us in all but rhetoric.
Right. What's going on in Libya? Like, is the country still like two countries right now?
I believe political integration is going on.
Political integration. Wow.
Um, getting all the government departments back together, preparing new elections. Aside from the question of what happens to all the warlords, it's been going quite well, I've heard.
Right.
Um, Although still a shocking turn of events. I mean, the National Army was supposed to win. And then the Turks show up and completely undo that.
So the Libyan government has not won.
Well, I mean, the question of who is the legitimate government is one that is an open question. But both sides, I believe, have committed to reconciliation and have been making a lot of strides towards it. Getting the currency reintegrated, getting customs all dealt. It's all very technical.
Right. Let's move to America, to the North America. Did Trudeau make a mistake?
Well, that was the question I asked yesterday. It's looking more and more like it. I don't know how he managed to screw it up, given how utterly idiotic O'Toole is, but he's doing a great job. Um, Especially given the polls, I think, are understating how bad things are getting for the Liberals. Um, because the People's Party is making the Tories look smaller than they otherwise would be.
You know, the conservatives and the liberals are both losing ground from what they had in 2019.
Well, but the Liberals are losing ground everywhere, whereas the Tories seem to be gaining in the um everywhere that isn't Alberta and everywhere else the People's Party is running on. So I mean, the Tory vote should be those two combined. Because I don't know, is the People's Party even contesting any actual swing seat?
I don't know.
Um, so I mean, Trudeau, I mean, and I think there was a tweet from the man himself. I'd have to find it, but about how the Liberals are keep going down. Oh, Biden's speaking now.
Oh, Biden's speaking now?
Apparently, he's ignoring Afghanistan. That's great. Not like anything else is going on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, if you look at the Economist's issue right now, it's not not a lot of interesting stuff outside of Afghanistan. Yeah. So yeah, like no,
I mean, but see, this is why this administration is getting so butchered in the press, is because you can't have a news segment with somebody in Afghanistan talking about how bad things are, and then the president just says, "Oh yeah, you want to hear about broadband?" Like, what is that supposed to mean?
Yeah. Wow, this edition is actually thin outside of the Asia section. Shia zealots try to cancel a statue of Baghdad's founder. Like this is what they're talking about in the Middle East. Is it because of everything that's going on in Asia?
Well, a lot of them would rather not think about it, um, because they know what's coming. I've also heard in Moldova the new government is moving quickly on the issue of at least corruption, with a purge planned of the previous anti-corruption unit, which of course doesn't do anything.
Sorry, I got distracted there. What were we talking about?
How many ads do you think we can make with videos of him walking away from press conferences?
Um, like 1,000.
Oh yeah.
You could blanket the air with them. Yeah, you can tell on video.
Aside from that, I mean, it's deeply immoral, of course, to think about when thinking about the deaths of tens of thousands to say, oh, how can we make ads about it? But we got to stay sane.
Yeah, we got to do that. So what's going on in Malaysia?
Well, I mean, the government hasn't had a majority for a long time, and they've sort of just been emergency powering their way past it. But apparently, they pissed off one of their local allies who immediately defected to the other side. Um,
Yeah.
Hopefully, a new election will restore them to power, as they are definitely the more pro-West of the two parties.
I mean, like the party that just won in like a few years ago in 2018 that sort of dislodged the old party that was there for like decades. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. That party is largely gone. Um, it's largely dissolved into its local components. Um, I believe they have a new name and everything.
Wow.
And so, Jesus.
For those who are wondering what's going on right now, I'm trying to upload the conversation I had with Kay Fellows as I am trying to talk to Cameron, and that is making for a fun multitasking slip ups in this stream. Actually, this is not a stream. This is a recording. So what am I talking about? What are you trying to bring
Streaming,
up?
obviously.
What are you trying to bring
Oh,
up?
Jesus. The completion of the withdrawal by August 31st depends on the Taliban cooperating. Jesus Christ.
Is that like a veiled threat?
That's a direct quote from Biden. Jesus Christ.
He's like dependent on the Taliban. He's like the Taliban's puppy.
You should be an admin. That would be a great ad.
Well, that's actually what Biden's called Trump, Putin's puppy.
I mean, nothing. I mean, even Helsinki wasn't even in the same universe as this.
Yeah, no, it's bad. I have nothing nice to say about Biden right now.
I mean, and the funny thing is just how utterly delusional they all are. Not even in the same universe is what's going.
What happened?
Apparently, he's complaining about ISIS now.
I'm going to my Twitter feed. I want to see this for myself. You know what? Why don't I turn on sharing so you could, if you have a stream.
Well, I mean, I'm on my own Twitter feed.
Okay. Well, I mean, like, if fine. Why are my windows acting so slow right now? This is just, I have too many windows open, that's why.
None of us are going to take the Taliban's word for hello.
Hi.
No, but just like, what is the dude on? Oh God, did he just say the Taliban wants to be legitimate? Jesus.
I mean, even Russia says they're not going to recognize the Taliban yet. And in fact, even Trudeau, let's just say that, made it clear that Canada would not recognize the Taliban.
You know what? If we were gonna file, and we should do this, I'm kind of surprised our people haven't done it already. File articles of impeachment against him. For this
dereliction of duty.
Well, no, but at what point does all of this qualify as support for a terrorist organization? Because I mean, it's at a level. I mean, it's illegal to cooperate with terrorist organizations, and yet they're just YOLOing it. Well, I'm reassured, yeah.
What a week.
What a month. What are you talking about? Week? It just keeps getting worse.
Do presidents recover from stuff like this?
Not really. I mean, Bush didn't recover from Katrina. Obama didn't recover ever. Trump didn't start, so he didn't have anything to recover to. The whole world is laughing or crying.
Oh, yeah. World, it was nice while it lasted. At
least Pfizer was approved on Monday.
Yeah, that was great.
Yesterday.
I hope they make it mandatory, like, everywhere.
The paperwork is the problem.
What do you mean?
Well, just I think I said this yesterday. The problem with vaccine passports is that determining who's been vaccinated isn't really an easy question. Given technically the most authoritative source is easily faked CDC cards.
Canada says they'll crack down hard on people who do that.
But how do you tell who faked it?
There are ways.
Because I mean, a lot of, especially in the early days, or places that had state-run administration sites, records were not really kept all that well. He ran away again. He
Oh, he
refused
ran
to
it.
take questions.
He ended it again.
Jesus.
Now you get to see
No
our.
way. No way. Yeah. He also boasted about taking out bin Laden when he said he didn't want to do it back in the day.
He
That's pretty
opposed.
good.
Yeah, yeah. It's you can't end a press conference without saying that.
And then but then and this, a lot of his supporters have said this, that we maintain our over the horizon capability to strike against terrorists. How? Are you just going to randomly kill people? Is that the plan?
Isn't that what Ted Cruz suggested? Carpet bombing ISIS?
Well, but that was in the midst of a war zone. This is like, what does that even mean? Over the horizon. If you notice, all of our drone bases are located in places with significant local allies. You know, in Somalia, we don't just randomly strike trucks that are driving around. You know, we've got, you know, locals reporting things all the time. Why would anybody give us intelligence now when they'll just be left behind?
Yeah, no. America's screwed.
Just awful. Yeah.
This was a galaxy brain move. Is I believe how the cool kids are saying it.
Oh yeah.
Totally
pointless speech. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, and you notice a lot of his speeches keep getting late.
Yeah.
And they keep being really late, you know. And
like
I'm
this one,
not the biggest
this
fan
one
of
I think
talking
was
about,
like 5 hours after it should have been.
Well, I'm not, you know, somebody who really cares about the health of one's leaders, but we're starting to see a pattern here.
Yeah, I have Cassie Dillon's tweets turned on, and I'm getting a lot of these updates in real time because she's working for Nikki Haley right now.
Yeah.
So Nikki Haley is breaking news. Nikki Haley is calling Joe Biden a coward.
Sounds about right.
Well, I wasn't expecting us to be that animated, but clearly we are both quite pissed off about what's going on.
Well, I mean, it's pissed off isn't even the correct word. It's so far beyond that.
Like it's like you want to strangle someone.
Basically. Oh God, we've got him walking away with the.
Ay. Why, Biden? Why did you have to do this?
It's in his nature.
I got nothing to say. I got nothing to say at this point. This is
My feed can barely keep up. It's pretty good.
yeah, don't mind me. Still struggling to load here because I need a new computer.
Terrible. Yeah, Biden and refusing to take questions. Name a more iconic duo.
Isn't that like standard practice at this point?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's even. Yeah, so a senile old man. Yeah.
This is on you, Biden. I don't care what anyone says. This is on you. So if you're just wondering why we just cut there, it's because my computer crashed. So we're having a great time with the technical difficulties while trying to upload a video and have a call at the same time. Things are just going great, right?
Oh yeah.
So we were talking about Biden. How is it over? Is the press conference over?
It is. Tragically, his presidency isn't either.
So things are just gonna keep getting worse, aren't they?
Oh yeah.
Not a great day to be a Biden supporter.
No, no, and here we got another video, another picture of the president's back.
Yeah.
You think his people would have figured out that they need to turn the camera off before he walks away?
Yeah, you think that, right?
Yeah, pure myth making, completely disconnected from reality.
Congratulations. This is just. I'm just. I've never been more cynical than I am now. I think is what's going on.
And given there are apparently a few flights from or leaving Gitmo at the moment, so they may be releasing several prisoners there to try and coax the Taliban into graciously allowing us to
Hopefully,
withdraw.
you are wrong about that. Hopefully, you are wrong about that.
Sounds about right, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, they don't care.
They do not
well,
give a
well,
damn.
And then you see that the same on a completely similar issue of incompetence. I mean, you see them continuing to have no clue what the hell they're doing with relates to COVID. They have no clue what they're doing. They've lost all their faith in the vaccine, which is disgusting. They're worried about variants that don't exist.
Like Lambda.
They're worried about, well, yeah, they're worried about things that don't remotely matter. I mean, you had Fauci yesterday saying that, excuse me, the type of mask you're wearing doesn't matter, which of course there was a study out just this week that that's not remotely true. I mean, it's just they don't. I mean, the really tragic part is that all of those, you know, radicals on the far right, especially, that said, oh, they don't care about health, they just care about power, are obviously correct.
Right.
Given, I mean, you've got the Australians running around shooting dogs and tear gassing kids for what?
To suppress the coronavirus.
But to suppress a handful of cases.
Because Australia and New Zealand have chosen to clamp down hard on it. They don't have like widespread coronavirus. But they do have lockdowns and they do have slow vaccine rates. But at least they can say they've got this thing under control.
But the definition of control is how close are we to normal, and they are much further from normal than we have ever been.
Right.
You know, we and especially a lot of the more stereotypical left is going to remain afraid of a simple respiratory virus, even while fully vaccinated, forever now. They're going to worry about every little case, every sniffle. It's sad almost when the real threat is gone for those that have chosen to take the vaccine.
I mean,
and the people that have not, well, they've made their choice. It's the choice that is having a greater impact on the healthcare system that I would have previously guessed, but it is one that can still be coped with.
Should we be hiking premiums or denying care to those who don't get vaccinated?
Well, I find it very ironic that those that implemented a ban on that sort of thing now saying that we should have that. I've been in favor of health insurance being more responsive to people's health for a long time, but of course it was the left that banned that kind of thing. And so, you know, especially with attacks against, you know, it may be the case that ivermectin doesn't work, and that is probably the case given the latest research. But I do find it highly cynical of the press's and the administration's attempt to disparage every possible treatment. I mean, going after DeSantis for his support of
we have a treatment. It's the vaccine.
But the vaccine is not a treatment. It does not take effect fast enough to treat active infections. And for those who have either wrongly chosen to not get vaccinated or simply are old enough to where even minorly getting sick is technically a problem, having something like monoclonal antibodies available is good. It
Yeah,
is an
but
unequivocal good. The position of the AP, for example, is disgusting, especially given that the government has already purchased all of these and are just waiting for them to be used.
what about the
Um,
horse fertilizer?
well, but that ivermectin is what people are talking about, and that's a case in which something that had shown promise in the early studies and has not in the more the better done more recent studies being combined with just idiots.
Yeah, the FDA had to put out a had a tweet saying, "You're not a horse."
Well, I do think the infantilization from that is not effective. Um, and so I think that in and of itself is a problem. I mean, it's the same people drinking soap and injecting bleach. I mean, it's in the same vein as that. Was ivermectin's mechanism of action technically possible for helping with COVID? Yeah. Did it end up working? No.
Yeah.
And so I don't think people who promoted it in the beginning should be attacked. Um, it simply didn't work. Um, if I've seen the latest literature correctly, we're basically down to the antibodies and then steroids as our only treatments, and both of which are quite effective if people get them. Sadly, a lot of people don't seem to know they're available, which is, of course, why it's good that many states are promoting their use preemptively to avoid more severe hospitalizations in the near future.
Yeah, what I was going to say was you wanted to end this thing off by the only way that you and I know how to, which is talking about maps.
I don't know anything about maps, sorry.
Or
I've seen a
or
lot of people. It's been kind of funny watching people really hyped over every line that a commission draws, um,
yeah.
as if
Um,
at this point it really matters.
but I guess I'll ask some things that I guess became evident in the granular data, which is that I is the rhetoric I often hear, which is more generally like that people are leaving New York and California for Florida and Texas. Doesn't the data like not bear that out as much as it was
well,
thought?
well, actually, speaking of the data, the data the census published is absolute trash. There is no point to using a lot of it. They've intentionally destroyed it. You can see how absolutely noisy the block level data is. You can see tons of places with blocks with data that makes no sense with 5 kids and no adults, or
That sounds like a daycare.
but you don't live at a daycare. These orphanage blocks are everywhere. The census has ruined the census intentionally. And I hope that somebody eventually wins a VRA lawsuit against.
The census?
Yeah. I know they threw out Mississippi's because the harm wasn't happening yet, but the harm is here.
Do
And
you think
thus
there
it
was
will force, you'll see a lot more professional drawing people using third-party data to assist with their drawing, since the official data is junk.
how did they screw it up that badly?
Well, it was willful. Differential privacy in and of itself is they intentionally destroyed it.
Right.
Um,
I mean, didn't they like insert like wrong pieces of information to keep people information private?
yeah, but people have continually told them, and even in their own public demonstrations on sample data, they weren't able to reveal anybody's information. The privacy threat that they state doesn't actually exist.
And don't they keep the data secret for 72 years?
Well, that's the individual data, but even the block level data could in theoretically be used, but the measures they had before to prevent, small blocks from giving away personal data are still way good enough to avoid disclosure of people's information. And honestly, people's information is already disclosed. I have the address of every Florida voter on my computer that they publish.
Wow.
Or you could look at any of the leaked data, from Equinox and all these other places. For that kind of stuff. I mean, the secret is out. People's identities are not secret, and the government should not destroy its data collection just to protect something that doesn't exist.
So you think the court will strike down differential privacy?
Well, I think states have a very good case. I mean, you even the last case that I was describing, I think it was Alabama actually, had the state of Alabama and the double NCP on the same side, because the destruction of block level data makes an enormous number of things impossible. Distributing housing aid correctly, zoning, noticing racial trend, everything relies on this low level data, and that data is garbage.
So this leads me to my next question. Is Georgia going to crack the Southwest?
I would. It's no longer populated enough to be majority black without being really sketchy.
Yeah.
And so I would draw in sort of, I think Macon is the name of the city.
Macon.
I could be wrong. Yeah. I would take that, draw it into Atlanta, and then crack the rest.
Oh, you draw Macon in with Atlanta. Wow.
Yeah.
You could get like a 10-4 map, right?
Yeah. 11-3 is suicide, but 10-4, as long as you crack the North too, should be sufficient.
Yeah, no, my thing is that they pack Democrats into 4 districts. Hank Johnson, Nikita Williams, Lucy McBath, and Austin Scott.
The hard part is they all need to be majority black, which you can do.
Yeah.
But that's an important part, because otherwise you'll be vulnerable under the VRA, given the Southwest is close.
Yeah, I don't like how the current map, like the lines just run right through Macon and they run right through Athens.
Oh yeah, you see that. And then of course there's Eric, I know, is fighting about this hard about Florida 5, which will not remotely exist in its current form.
Yeah, no, wouldn't a fair map have like a Florida 5 entirely within Duval County?
Probably.
And you can make it VRA that way.
Well, no, you can't, because it won't be majority black.
Right. Okay. Fine.
But it is not a protected I do not care how many people with maps as their avatars say that it is protected. Majority coalition districts are not protected.
They have to be majority one race.
Yeah, and it is not. It is not possible to draw a majority black district in North Florida. It can't be done. Even if you snake it all over the place, it cannot be done.
So then what's the good reason? What is the good reason for like dismantling the district?
It's not compact.
You think it's illegal?
Well, it's not illegal, but it's not protected.
Right.
When the legislature goes to redraw it, they should be able to, both under the VRA and under the Fair Districts Amendment.
Well, wasn't that the amendment they used to strike down the district?
Originally, but Dems, I think, are maybe overestimating how much they're going to save with that, given how red the Florida Supreme Court is now.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I think people should call the Florida Supreme Court a Republican-controlled court, because...
Well, it is, in the same way that the North Carolina court for the next year is a Dem-controlled court.
Yeah.
It won't be at the end, but, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Rhode Island also, by the way, has like a 5-0 Republican court.
Well, in the most literal sense, but yeah.
I think Massachusetts also now has a 9-0 court.
But a lot of those courts are going to be, they're still going to be quite liberal.
Right. Well, so like wasn't like the Oklahoma Supreme Court, even when it had majority Democrats until like earlier this year, wasn't still conservative.
Not really. They did cause us some problems, in terms of redistricting and education funding.
Right.
And so that was good to, flip that finally. But the important, for us, the most important thing will be holding Ohio, butchering, Pennsylvania, and taking North Carolina. That will cement our rule.
You talk about that like it's like you're just open about the fact that it's the politicians choosing their voters and not the other way around.
Well, I mean, it's not just about redistricting is only a small part, but a lot of these state Supreme Courts rule on very important issues, gun policy, abortion policy,
I think
education
Republicans
funding.
are purely playing defense in Ohio next year.
Yeah, we have 2 seats up, or 1, I forget which. Fortunately, the races are partisan now, so that should avoid the joke of what happened, in 2018 or even last year, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Democrats had to win them both last year in order to flip. They didn't.
Yeah, they only won 1, because it was nonpartisan.
Yeah.
Tragically, Pennsylvania, they may not have moved the districts amendment up fast enough.
Oh, they're gonna move like Ohio to have judicial districts.
Yeah.
I'm not excited about judicial districts, honestly. Like,
I think it's a reasonable system just because there's no reason to elect them statewide.
And I just remember to update the districts like every so often, because like Illinois went like decades without updating that.
Yeah. Well, it's only minorly cynical that they just updated them right when we were about to take control.
Right. No, I'm not as. Go ahead.
What?
I was gonna say I'm not as big about. Not. I think it's a big deal that state politicians draw congressional lines. I think it's more sketchy they draw their own lines, though.
Well, I mean, in large part, if you had, say, like partisan, like Texas's commission, with the statewide officials drawing them, I think that would lead to the most radical maps rather than state legislatures doing it. Because state legislatures often have, incumbent concerns that are beyond partisan concerns.
Right.
Which tempers the enthusiasm of perhaps myself and others.
So you would have like the state attorney general draw the map, or?
Well, it would be like all of the statewide officials.
Oh wow.
There's like 5 people on the list, I think.
Well, in Texas, but in North Carolina, there's like 13.
Yeah, of which we do technically have a majority, don't we?
Yeah, the Council of State. Yeah.
Yeah. But even there, the state legislature, I know we've taken all the right steps to draw a map that isn't technically partisan, but is partisan enough.
Yeah.
I mean, given the way things are going these days, I don't think we really need to do much to the maps in order to win control.
In Texas, what's the best that Republicans could go for? 27-11?
That will be tough. I think 2-1 or just above is what one should go for.
So like 26.
I'm too lazy to do the math, but
26-12, 25-13.
Yeah. I think I've seen some good ones with 12 blue seats. I haven't actually. They just published the 2020 results. So I'll have to make a Texas map. It's the one state I never really made a good map for because there's too much competition.
Do that. Definitely do
Nobody
that.
draws California
because no one knows what California is going to do.
I don't even know if California knows what California is going to do. I mean, the commission is who even knows. We're lucky that, I mean, the recall is going to be such an epic meme if we win or even get close.
Oh, definitely.
We don't deserve to be within 15 points, but Dems do seem prepared to screw it up, don't they?
Yeah, I think they're preparing for the worst at this point.
Had it occurred during, January, Newsom would lose by double digits at least.
Yeah.
And of course, the factors that caused that are still true today, as they are not forgivable.
Okay.
Despite the best attempts of some hardcore people.
Right. So anything else you want to mention? Anything else you want to rage about?
Rage is all I've got these days, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's been bad. Um, the
It's been really good for my analytics, though. Where is this? Oh, it's in Vanity Fair. Republicans are weaponizing Afghanistan chaos to get ahead in 2022. He should have used pounce. We're always pouncing.
yeah, who's pounce? What's pounce?
We're pouncing.
We're pounce.
Republicans.
We're pouncing.
Yeah, you know the headline: Republicans pounce on chaos or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
But I mean, look at it. Like over the last 28 days, my profile visits up 150%. So you know, it only takes tens of thousands of people being at risk of murder, apparently.
and a good rapport as a neoconservative.
Yeah.
You're a man after my own heart.
Whoa, dude. Well, and of course there was that. I don't know why how I was gonna vote in the recall. I don't know why that got 210 likes.
You know, I can't believe like very few people engage. Like, did you hear say how I was gonna vote?
I think we disagreed on the matter.
Yeah, I said yes, Cox.
I have a deep hatred of Cox.
Really?
Well, both in the 3-letter sans send and the 5 words.
Oh yeah. Right.
Well, no, but he shouldn't. He had one job in 2018 and he failed.
Right.
He can't come back from that.
I mean, I like it where he stands on both abortion and the death penalty. To be honest.
Well, but I mean, every Republican will do that.
Kevin Falconer is pro-choice.
Yeah, you know, if he was the only Republican running, he would be my choice by far.
I can't believe Larry Elder is actually the front runner. How like that happened out of nowhere?
It did. It doesn't hurt that he's black. So I mean, it forces the LA Times to run headlines: "Black man is symbol of white supremacy."
I mean,
so it does help, and I believe he was a popular radio host among Republicans here in the past.
yeah.
I never heard of him before.
He from what my Oppo research I've done on him, he's a nut.
He is marginally crazy, but you know, I've heard of worse.
Yeah. That worse was president of the United States for 4 years.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of states are going to vote on marijuana. I don't have Ballotpedia open right now, but
It would take 15 minutes to load, even if you did.
oh, definitely. Oh, that sucks. Gibraltar legalized abortion a couple months ago.
They've had a left-wing government for a long time. I'm surprised it took this long.
Yeah. Any news out of Latin America these days?
I know in Colombia, well, I mean, the left is just rising absolutely everywhere.
You think they're untamed?
Oh yeah, I mean the pink tide 2.0 is coming.
Ecuador, I think, was a bit of good news.
Barely. Even he's a little power hungry.
Oh.
But I mean, once Bolsonaro loses, once in Colombia the left takes, I believe the last right-wing governments will be out.
Right.
Except the Colorado party, I guess. And you're not Uganda. You get the point.
Uganda's in Africa.
Yeah.
Actually, let me see. Colorado party. Oh, Paraguay or Uruguay?
Uruguay, yeah.
Uruguay.
I don't speak English very well, so.
is a centrist political party in Uruguay. So, they look like they're not currently in the government.
There's two Colorado parties. Where's the other one from?
Paraguay.
Yeah. They're still in power, I think, freaking barely.
Okay. Paraguay.
Yeah, we keep them in power, yeah.
They're
Actually,
conservative.
Yeah, their time is gonna come. Oh, 2023, that's good.
Yeah.
That was an exciting one for them to win, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So you think De Silva is gonna win in Lula da Silva is gonna win in Brazil?
Oh yeah.
And do you think the left is gonna win in Hungary?
It's gonna be very tight, I would tend to guess. I would guess they win the popular vote, but I don't know if they'll win in terms of seats.
Well,
I know they
that's
have, it's not pure PR, and I think their support is a little too concentrated to win in a very close race.
right. It's the
'Cause
problem
they're What?
the problem the conservatives had in 2019 in Canada.
Yeah. The thing that's funny is that I'm not the biggest fan of Fitz and their friends, but I've hated Jobbik for years, and I don't know if allying with them is forgivable.
Right.
They may not say they're a far right party anymore, but it's the same freaking people. Just because they say they don't hate Jews and gypsies today, why should we dismiss their statements from yesterday in which they said just that?
They're like the AFD, right?
Well, no, Jobbik is a neo-Nazi party.
Oh wow.
They're way far to the, I mean, they're Golden Dawn level.
Okay. So they're
And
not
yet
like
the left is sort of, oh, they're reasonable now.
okay. I'm getting a headache. You want to call it and resume another time?
Should order a pizza. Yeah.
Yeah, I should definitely get dinner. Anyway, great to see you
Is the weather at least nice in Toronto?
in Ottawa.
Ottawa, close enough.
Probably in the 30s right now.
Yeah. I'm from LA. That's the closest. That's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like nobody from LA is actually from LA, but
Anyway,
yeah.
see you next time.
Yeah.